Assalamu alaikum, let's explore this Islamic topic together. Hey, so, you know how much I've been getting into Islamic architecture lately? It's absolutely stunning, right? But beyond the breathtaking visuals, the intricate mosaics, the soaring domes, the elegant arches, there's something else incredibly fascinating. Islamic architectural acoustics. It's not just about pretty buildings. It's deeply connected to the very essence of Islamic faith and practice. See, in Islam, the call to prayer, the adhan, is incredibly important. It's the voice that calls the faithful to prayer 5 times a day. Imagine the power of that sound, echoing across a bustling city, a peaceful desert, a bustling market. For centuries, architects understood the profound spiritual significance of this call and designed mosques and other religious spaces to amplify and enhance it. It's not just about hearing the adhan. It's about feeling its presence, feeling the call resonate within you. Think about it, the adhan is more than just a notification. It's a spiritual experience. It's a reminder of God, a moment of reflection, a summons to community. The acoustic design of these spaces wasn't just a technical feat. It was a way to amplify this spiritual experience, making it more profound and accessible to everyone. Now, aren't some modern idea. We're talking about centuries of careful planning and ingenious design. They didn't have fancy computer modeling or acoustic analysis software back then. Their understanding was experience, observation, and a deep intuitive sense of how sound behaves in different spaces. They learned through generations of building, listening, refining, and perfecting their techniques. It was a deeply practical and deeply spiritual art form. One of the key elements is the shape of the mosque itself. The dome, for example, is not just a beautiful architectural feature. It's an acoustic marvel. Its curved surface acts like a giant sound reflector, and projecting the adhan outwards, carrying it further than it would otherwise travel. Imagine the impact that had in ancient cities, where mosques were often the tallest structures, their domes acting as acoustic beacons across the landscape. Then there are the minarets. These tall, slender towers are not just visually striking. They're strategically placed to optimize the sound projection of the adhan. Their height ensures the call can be heard from a significant distance, and their shape helps to direct the sound waves outwards. It's almost like a natural loudspeaker system, cleverly designed to reach as many people as possible. But it's not just the larger structures. Even smaller details played a vital role. Think about the intricate patterns and geometric designs found in many Islamic structures. These weren't just decorative. Many of these patterns, particularly the repeating ones, could have subtly influenced sound reflection and diffusion within the spaces. It's a subtle thing, but it shows a deep understanding of how even small details can contribute to the overall acoustic experience. Moreover, the materials used were also carefully considered. The choice of stone, wood, or plaster, the thickness of the walls, even the types of flooring, all these impacted how sound traveled through the building. It wasn't just about acoustics. These material choices also reflected the cultural and environmental context. They chose materials that were readily available, durable, and suited to the climate. Again, this wasn't just about science. It was about harmonious integration with nature and a respect for available res. The courtyard within a mosque also plays a crucial role. The open space helps to create a natural resonance, allowing the sound of the adhan to reverberate naturally. The arrangement of the building around the courtyard, often with reflecting surfaces, can further enhance this effect. It's not just about amplification. It's about creating a sense of space and grandeur, which adds to the spiritual ambience. So, Islamic architectural acoustics isn't just some forgotten historical curiosity. It's a living legacy. By studying these ancient structures, we not only learn about the ingenuity of past builders but also gain insights into the profound relationship between faith, community, and the built environment. It reminds us that architecture isn't just about form and function. It's also about creating spaces that enhance and enrich the spiritual lives of the people who use them. And isn't that amazing? It's more than just buildings. It's a story of faith, ingenuity, and the enduring power of sound. It truly makes you appreciate the artists and the deep thinking that went into creating these magnificent structures. Hey, so, you know how we were talking about architecture the other day? Well, I've been doing some reading about Islamic architecture, and it's mind-blowing. Specifically, I got really fascinated by something called Islamic architectural acoustics. It's not just about pretty buildings. It's about how sound itself was a fundamental part of the design. Right from the very beginning. Imagine this. It's the 7th century, the early days of Islam. The religion is spreading rapidly across vast swathes of land, from the Arabian Peninsula to North Africa and beyond. And with that spread comes the need for mosques, places of worship, community gathering spaces, places of learning. These weren't just buildings, they were the heart of the burgeoning Islamic world. Now, think about the core tenets of Islam. The call to prayer, the adhan, is absolutely central. It's a powerful, emotive vocalization, meant to resonate not just within a person's heart, but across the entire community. So, right from the get-go, architects faced a unique challenge. How do you create a space where the adhan can be heard clearly, carrying across the courtyards, reaching even the furthest corners, and filling the hearts of the worshippers? That's where the story of Islamic architectural acoustics really begins. It wasn't a conscious, formulated field of study in the way we understand acoustics today. They didn't have fancy software or complex equations. But they were incredibly intuitive and masterful builders, deeply connected to their environment and acutely aware of the power of sound. They understood things instinctively, through trial and error, and passed down knowledge through generations of master craftsmen. Think about the materials they used: stone, brick, wood, sometimes even plaster. Each material has its own acoustic properties, how it absorbs, reflects, or transmits sound. They understood this implicitly. A thick stone wall, for example, would help to dampen unwanted noise from outside the mosque, paying attention on the sounds within. But the internal spaces were carefully planned. Early mosques often featured courtyards, open spaces that allowed the sound to travel further. The placement of the mihrab, the niche indicating the direction of Makkah, wasn't arbitrary. It was often positioned to optimize the projection of the Imam's voice during prayers. Imagine them observing, listening to how sound bounced off different surfaces, adjusting the angles of walls, the height of ceilings, the materials used, to achieve the perfect acoustic balance. And it wasn't just about the adhan. Mosques were centers of learning, and the recitation of the Quran, with its beautiful rhythms and melodic intonations, played a vital role. They needed spaces where the subtle nuances of the recitation were clear and audible, promoting deep contemplation and spiritual understanding. These weren't just spaces for prayer. They were places where knowledge was shared, where the beauty of language and the Word of God were profoundly experienced. The acoustics played a crucial role in facilitating that experience. The development of Islamic architecture over centuries saw this awareness of acoustics evolve. Consider the grand mosques of later periods. The breathtaking structures like the Great Mosque of Kairouan or the Mosque of Cordoba. These are places of immense scale and complexity. Yet, even in these vast spaces, a remarkable clarity of sound often prevails. This wasn't accidental. Architects continued to refine techniques, using geometric patterns, intricate designs, and carefully chosen materials to control and manipulate the flow of sound. They weren't just building buildings. They were crafting acoustic environments. What's truly amazing is how much of this knowledge was passed down through apprenticeships, through observation, and through a deep understanding of the relationship between space, materials, and sound. It wasn't written down in the way we document scientific findings today. But the legacy is evident in the remarkable acoustic properties of these historic mosques. It's a testament to their ingenuity and the deep spiritual significance they placed on creating spaces that facilitated a profound connection between the worshipper and the divine. So, the early days of Islamic architectural acoustics weren't about equations or scientific papers. It was about a profound understanding of the power of sound, a deep appreciation for the spiritual significance of the spoken word, and a mastery of building techniques that allowed them to create spaces where the voice of God, literally and figuratively, could be heard clearly and powerfully. It's a story of artists, faith, and ingenious problem solving, all woven into the very fabric of some of the world's most beautiful buildings. Isn't that incredible? Hey, so we were talking about Islamic architecture, right? And how stunning it is? Well, let's dive a little deeper. Because things get really fascinating when we talk about the acoustics, the way sound behaves within those incredible spaces. It's not just about pretty buildings. It's about a deeply considered relationship between architecture, faith, and the human experience of sound. Think about it. Mosques, madrasas, schools, palaces, all these buildings were designed not just to be visually impressive, but to create a specific sonic environment. It's almost like they understood sound as a kind of spiritual energy, shaping the atmosphere and enhancing the experience of worship, learning, or even just gathering. Now, we've already touched on the early stuff, the basic principles, but the middle chapters, those are where things get truly interesting. This is when Islamic civilization was at its peak, spreading across vast territories, and architectural styles were developing and evolving along with its scientific understanding. We're talking about a period spanning centuries, from the Abbasid Caliphate onward, influencing different regions with distinct approaches. Imagine you're walking into a grand mosque from this era. The sheer scale of the space alone is breathtaking. But notice how the sound of the adhan, the call to prayer, resonates. It's not just loud, it's clear, carrying across the vast courtyard and echoing beautifully within the prayer hall. This wasn't accidental. Architects were keenly aware of how the shape of the dome, the size and placement of the minarets, even the materials used in construction, all contributed to the acoustic properties of the space. They understood the importance of reverberation, that lingering echo. In a mosque, this wasn't just about amplification. It was about creating a sense of awe and reverence. That echoing call to prayer, that prolonged resonance, it literally created a space where the divine felt more present. It was a way of amplifying the spiritual message, making it a more immersive experience. And it wasn't just about mosques. Think about the madrasas, the schools. These places were buzzing with activity, students reciting verses, scholars debating, lectures being given. The acoustics of these spaces were crucial for clear communication, for ensuring that everyone could hear and understand. They often incorporated courtyards and open spaces, cleverly using natural acoustics to control the sound and prevent unwanted noise from overwhelming the learning environment. Some madrasas even had specially designed whispering galleries, where sounds could travel surprisingly long distances, maybe adding a bit of playful intrigue to the learning experience. The materials themselves played a huge part. Think about the intricate geometric patterns you see in Islamic architecture. Those aren't just decorative. The materials chosen, from intricately carved stone and wood to intricately patterned tiles, each had their acoustic properties. Some materials absorbed sound, others reflected it. Architects were masters at using these materials to sculpt the soundscape, creating a harmonious blend of echoes, whispers, and resonant voices. Then there's the interplay between indoor and outdoor spaces. The courtyards, often with water features, played a crucial role in shaping the acoustic environment. Water, you see, acts as a natural sound absorber and softens harsh sounds. So, the calm of the courtyard could contrast beautifully with the resonant power of the prayer hall, creating a dynamic and enriching sonic journey within a single complex. It wasn't just a matter of scientific understanding, either. There was a deep philosophical and religious element to it all. Sound, in many Islamic traditions, is deeply connected to the divine. The Quran itself speaks of the melodious voice of God, emphasizing the power and beauty of sound. Architects weren't just building structures. They were crafting spaces where the divine could be more readily experienced and appreciated through the power of sound. This attention to acoustics wasn't confined to religious spaces. Even palaces and other secular buildings often incorporated sophisticated acoustic designs. Imagine the grandeur of a royal gathering, the music and conversation echoing through vast halls, the acoustics contributing to the overall sense of majesty and power. It really highlights how integral sound was to the daily lives and cultural expression of Islamic societies. So, the middle chapters of Islamic architectural acoustics aren't just about technical details. They're about a rich interplay of faith, science, art, and culture. They reveal a sophisticated understanding of sound and its ability to shape human experience, an understanding that continues to inspire awe and wonder today. It's a story that really underscores how much thought and intentionality went into even the most seemingly insignificant details of Islamic architecture, turning each space into a carefully crafted soundscape designed to enrich the lives of those who inhabited it. And that, my friend, is something truly remarkable. Okay. So we're almost at the end of our little dive into Islamic architectural acoustics. Right? It's been fascinating, hasn't it? Thinking about how sound shaped not just the feel asterisk of these spaces, but their very purpose. It's amazing. To wrap things up, let's think about how this whole story concludes. Not with the final chapter, but more like a fading echo, if you will. Because Islamic architectural acoustics didn't just end at a certain point. It's something that evolved, adapted, and continues to influence design even today, albeit in subtler ways. Remember how we talked about the early mosques, the ones built in the 7th and 8th centuries? Those simple, yet profoundly effective spaces, often built with readily available materials like mud, brick, and wood. The acoustics in those spaces weren't about perfect clarity in the way a modern concert hall might be. It was more about creating an atmosphere of reverence and awe. Think about it. The gentle murmur of prayer, amplified just enough by the architecture to create a sense of communal devotion. That subtle reverberation wasn't a flaw. It was integral to the experience. As the Islamic Empire expanded, so did the sophistication of its architecture. We saw the introduction of more refined materials, marble, stucco, intricate geometric patterns. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it directly impacted the acoustics. The careful placement of minarets, for instance, wasn't simply decorative. Their height and shape played a crucial role in carrying the adhan. The call to prayer, across vast distances, making sure everyone within earshot could hear the summons to worship. It was a masterful blend of engineering, religious practice, and a deep understanding of how sound behaves in different environments. Then you had the madrasas, the schools. The design of these spaces wasn't just about providing shelter for students and teachers. It was about optimizing the environment for learning and discussion. Imagine sitting in a beautifully proportioned courtyard. The sound of the teacher's voice resonating evenly. The murmur of students engaged in study creating a gentle background hum, a symphony of learning. If you will, the acoustics weren't just about hearing clearly. They were about creating a conducive atmosphere for study and intellectual discourse. And the palaces, oh my, those opulent spaces, with their intricate mosaics, their soaring domes and arches. The acoustics in these were often designed to create a sense of grandeur and power. A subtle way to enhance the authority of the ruler. It wasn't just about practical considerations. It was about shaping the experience, influencing the perception of those who inhabited and visited these magnificent spaces. Now, as we move further into history, the direct, intentional application of these acoustic principles becomes less pronounced, though it doesn't disappear entirely. The Ottoman Empire, for example, continued the tradition of grand, acoustically significant spaces in mosques and palaces. But with the rise of Western architectural styles and engineering practices, a more scientific, almost clinical approach to acoustics emerged. They shifted towards precise calculations and mathematical modeling, sometimes losing sight of the more holistic, experiential approach that was so central to the Islamic tradition. However, the legacy of Islamic architectural acoustics remains palpable. It's not just in the surviving structures, still echoing with the whispers of prayer and the resonance of history. It's also in the enduring principles of thoughtful design. The understanding that architecture isn't just about bricks and mortar, but about shaping experience, fostering community, and creating spaces that resonate deeply with the human spirit. The way we think about acoustics today, the way we design concert halls, theaters, even modern mosques, is still influenced, consciously or unconsciously, by the innovative and profoundly spiritual approach to sound that characterized Islamic architecture. The subtle reverberation in a prayer hall, the clear projection of the adhan across a city, the harmonious blend of voices in a madrasa. These are echoes that continue to inspire architects and engineers even now. So, while there's no single conclusion to the story of Islamic architectural acoustics, its legacy continues to resonate. It's a testament to the ingenuity and the deep spiritual understanding that informed the design of some of the world's most beautiful and evocative spaces. And that, my friend, is a truly remarkable achievement. We've only scratched the surface, really. But I hope this little chat has given you a sense of the richness and complexity of this fascinating subject. What do you think? Anything else you'd like to explore? So, what does Islamic architectural acoustics teach Muslims today? That's a really fascinating question, isn't it? It's not something you hear about every day. But when you think about it, it's deeply connected to our faith and our history. Think about it. Mosques, madrasas, palaces. These weren't just buildings. They were living, breathing spaces designed with incredible care and precision. And a huge part of that design was the sound. It wasn't just about hearing the Imam clearly. It was about creating an atmosphere, a feeling, a connection to the divine. Islamic architectural acoustics isn't just about the science of sound. It's about the spiritual experience it creates. Let's go back a bit. Imagine the early mosques, simple structures perhaps, but already incorporating elements that subtly manipulated sound. Think about the open courtyard, often surrounded by walls and sometimes a covered prayer hall. That design wasn't accidental. The open space allowed for natural ventilation and light, crucial in hot climates, but also subtly dispersed sound, creating a sense of spaciousness and calm. The walls, sometimes built with specific materials, played a role in reflecting and absorbing sound, ensuring that the call to prayer, the adhan, carried far and wide, but also that the recitation of the Quran during prayers resonated beautifully within the prayer hall. As Islamic civilization flourished, so did the sophistication of this acoustic design. We see this in magnificent mosques like the Great Mosque of Kairouan in Tunisia, one of the oldest surviving mosques in the world. The sheer scale of the structure, the placement of the minaret, the way the interior spaces are arranged, all contribute to a unique acoustic environment. It's not just about hearing the words, it's about feeling the resonance of faith. The sound becomes part of the spiritual experience, enhancing the feeling of reverence and awe. Now, aren't just about the past. These principles, even if not explicitly labeled Islamic architectural acoustics, are still relevant today. Think about modern mosque design. While styles have evolved, the underlying principles of creating an environment conducive to prayer and contemplation remain crucial. Architects are still striving to create spaces where the human voice, the recitation of the Quran, and the call to prayer are perfectly amplified and understood. This isn't just a matter of technical expertise. It's a matter of continuing a tradition that has deep religious significance. And the influence extends beyond mosques. Consider madrasas, the schools of Islamic learning. Think about the importance of clear articulation and the need for students to hear lectures properly. The design of these spaces, though perhaps less overtly ed on the grandeur of a mosque, would have considered acoustic principles to create a learning environment conducive to in comprehension. The ability to hear clearly and effectively isn't simply a practical consideration. It's fundamental to the acquisition of knowledge and the dissemination of religious understanding. Even in palaces and other public buildings, the approach to acoustics wasn't random. The design reflected a cultural value placed on clear communication and the creation of specific moods or atmospheres. Imagine a royal audience chamber. The careful manipulation of sound would have played a key role in projecting authority and dignity, enhancing the impact of the ruler's pronouncements. What can we learn from this legacy today? I think there's a lot. For one, it teaches us the importance of mindful design, of considering the totality of the human experience within a space. It's not enough to create a building that's visually appealing. It needs to be a space that enhances the intended purpose. In this case, spiritual connection, learning, or royal authority. Secondly, it shows the deep integration of faith and practical knowledge in Islamic civilization. The pursuit of knowledge in all its forms, including the scientific understanding of acoustics, wasn't seen as separate from religious devotion but as integral to it. This interconnectedness is something we can learn from and reflect on in our own lives. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it reminds us of the importance of creating spaces that foster peace, contemplation, and connection. In a world increasingly filled with noise and distraction, understanding the principles of Islamic architectural acoustics can help us create spaces that are not only aesthetically pleasing but also spiritually nourishing and conducive to both individual and collective well-being. It's a subtle, but powerful, reminder that even the most mundane aspects of our built environment can be imbued with spiritual meaning and purpose. It's a rich field, and just scratching the surface reveals so much about how our ancestors approached both the practical and the sacred. It's a legacy well worth exploring. Goodbye, may Allah bless us all. That's our discussion for today.